it looks at the colleagues of the target prospect and says, well, what is the email address that they use? What is the format that they use? You see, every company has some kind of a format, some first name dot last name, or first name initial of last name, whatever. It goes and figures this part out, and it tells you here's the most probable email that you could use to get in touch with these people, right? So you take a name in a company, press one button inside the software and get a usable email address and a phone number. And how accurate is the system that we have developed? Well, if an email address is on the internet, there's a 95% chance that we can find it in the zillions of documents that are out there. And just to prove a point, we got a patent on the process, so you know it works and you won't get it from anywhere else. Another thing, just before I hand over the floor back to Flynn, a second problem that most salespeople had and have, okay, is once you have a company, say you're following a set of companies, you have a list of target companies in a niche market or even otherwise, you have the company name, but you're still missing the name of the decision maker and their contact information. So yeah, you could take all this, you could go out, search for who are the people connected to on your LinkedIn, look for press releases, look at various places, look at the website. You can do all these things, yes, but wouldn't you rather spend that time speaking to somebody? Wouldn't you rather spend that time prospecting, right? So that's what we made simple with the eGrabber tool. So you can type in the name of the company, press one button, and in a few seconds the software shows you a list of decision makers. It visits all the various places that you would visit, and it does all the hard work and gets you that list for you, right? So you can pick up that list, you can start making calls to the people that you need to speak to and start making those business closures. Now, for those of you who like to qualify companies, before you call them out, qualify them in terms of revenue, number of employees, stuff like that, or maybe read some news about them before you actually pick up the phone and call them. Well, we made a simple company profile for you. So if you click that, you immediately get a nice little company card, if you like, enough of information for you to know, should I call this company or not? Okay. And for you to impress your prospect, okay, in 10 seconds, or right now the slide says 30 seconds to impress your prospect, but that's not right nowadays. You have 10 seconds to impress your prospect. So for you to know, for you to read enough and to know more about your prospect, we're giving you some quick things to read about on the internet, trends, news, stuff about the company that you can click and get in a very short span of time. Okay, so there it is. That's the account researcher. So you can take a name and a company from anywhere and get a full business card that you can use along with the name and the phone number. And once you're done with that business card, you can easily transfer it to any of your CRMs, whether it's Microsoft Dynamics, whether it's Salesforce, Excel, wherever it is. Okay. And the good news is we are giving a little off on the software, and this is our thank you for being on the call. Okay. This software is usually a very easy, affordable $80 a month, okay? Or if you're going for the yearly license, it's $875. But since you're here on this webinar, we're giving you an extra off, so you can get the yearly license for $625. So that's the offer today, okay? So I'm done with my presentation, okay? And once you get that, once you have a LinkedIn profile and you get an email address and a phone number from wherever it is, or you get a list of decision makers from from wherever it is, the account researcher can build the business cards for you, okay? And the good news is there's a free trial available, and Rich will be pasting the links in your GoToMeeting chat, okay? If you take a moment to click that and download the trial, you can use it for 7 days. And if you get any business from it, no problem. You can keep the trial, you can keep the leads, you can use it for 50 leads. If you get any business from it, that's yours. You don't have to pay us. But the good news is if you get some business, then if you want to get some more, you can use the account researcher and get some more business. Okay. That said, once you get that email address and the phone number, here's how you can use that in B2B telephone prospecting. And it's back to Flynn right now. Flynn?
All right, thank you. That was great. I'll tell you, it's pretty amazing what that product does. I use it a lot to for my own business, and it's very, very quick. It gets you the information very quickly, almost fast enough that you can make calls on the fly just by going through LinkedIn profiles and saying, hey, I want to get a hold of this guy, and you click the button and it gets you the information and you can make the call by the time you're ready to go. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about some really key ideas in making high-quality prospecting calls. And I'm going to bet that most of you, even if you're experienced salespeople or even managers, may not have seen some of this information before, because very few people teach it. But I think a big part of the essence of making a great cold call is going to be in the next few minutes here. So do I have control of these, or are you guys flipping the slides for me? There we go. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna share with you today. First, I'm going to share some critical keys to presenting when you make cold calls. Presentation, script, and voice, 3 of the subjects we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about how the telephone works and the nature of its communication. Communicating on the phone is much different than being face-to-face, and it's also not our natural mode of communication. So certain things that we take for granted and see in our normal communication don't happen on cell phone, or they happen in different ways, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that so you can leverage it. Then I'm going to talk about the right things to say. Basically, I'm going to give you some guidelines for how to construct what you say and how to deal with the prospect in a live conversation on a prospecting call. And then I'm going to really quickly tell you how LinkedIn can help your prospecting calls, the kinds of things you can do. And then I'm going to share with you a couple of things that I have that can improve your LinkedIn results. One of them is a free video I did with a very famous copywriter for his list as a private webinar, a guy by the name of Bob Bly, and I'll give you the link so you can sign up and watch that 70-minute webinar on how to use LinkedIn. Okay, next slide. Next slide.
Yes, slide.
There we go. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you about prospecting is don't fly by the seat of your pants. I'd have to say, unfortunately, I've probably had over 500 clients, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of sales organizations and salespeople and managers and everything else, and I would say that 99% of them break this rule. What I mean by fly by the seat of your pants is trying to come up with what to say on the fly without having it documented, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And the reason for this is all these things: stumbling, hesitation, a non-positive reaction. Let me give you an example of a non-positive reaction. You call up, the prospect says, well, we're really happy with our current vendor, and you go, oh. Okay? That negative response to what the prospect said basically tells the prospect you're done. Okay? And it's very much the cause of people disengaging. Reaching for responses, saying things that are irrelevant, or talking about things that are irrelevant. I'm going to go into this in a little more detail as we go. And the other thing, giving a speech when you're talking to a prospect on that initial call. You want that initial call to be very interactive. People get really tired and bored very quickly with any kind of a speech. So you need to get your prospect engaged very quickly, or what's going to happen is these things will all cause your prospect to tend to disengage. Next slide. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is to create a script. And this is, oops, sorry about that. I got a little technical issue popped up on me here, so just clearing it out of the way. It's not going away. Okay, well, we'll skip. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is create a script, and the script should include the following. The first thing you want is a clear, concise objective to what it is you're trying to do. Before you make a cold call, you want to know exactly what it is you want the prospect to do when you're done with that call. Okay? Maybe you want to arrange another meeting. Maybe you want to get him to give you his contact information and allow you to send him something of value or information. The other thing you want the script to do is you want it to possess the well-crafted wording. Most people have a truly negative reaction to the word scripts and the concept of a script, and it's probably well-founded because most of the time when you hear a script, it's from a telemarketer who's reading it, and it sounds like he's reading it. But what I would tell you is I'm probably just about as good as anybody at flying by the seat of my pants and coming up with really compelling and powerful wording to describe what it is I want to talk about, or a creative question to get the prospect engaged. I'm probably as good as anybody at doing that. Most people are not terribly good at it, and you will greatly improve, as I do when I use a script, you will greatly improve the quality of what you say by having well-crafted wording that's already been thought out. There are all kinds of ways to ask a question. There are all kinds of ways to give a description of your product. There are all kinds of ways to talk about the benefits of your product. But when you get in a cold call, you want to use the very best you can. And by having a script, you have that well-crafted wording right there at your fingertips that you can use. You also want to have answers to every objection that you can imagine the prospect bringing up for the call you're going to make. Okay, you want to be able to answer those questions, and to give you an idea of how you need to answer those in respect to the previous slide, you basically want to attack anything that is said by the prospect with interest and enthusiasm. Okay, so the idea that he has a vendor already, okay, we're happy with the vendor we have, is not something to be discouraged about, but it's something to be excited about and happy about for the prospect. Of course you have a vendor you're happy with. I would be surprised if you'd keep the vendor if they didn't do a good job for you. But I'm not calling to tell you to drop your current vendor, right? So you want to attack that with enthusiasm and energy, and you want to have a path or a place to go with that answer. In that particular situation, one of the most common tries would be to say, look, every smart vendor or every smart company has multiple vendors, even when they have a really good vendor as their primary supplier, because you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes things just get messed up and you need a resource. And so that's where you might go with that presentation to get the prospect to consider using you as an alternative resource in an emergency situation. Okay, and of course, in order to do a good job with any objective, you should have a well-planned sequence of events that or things that you need to do, tasks that you need to complete to get the prospect from point A, who doesn't know you, to point B, where he says, hey, I'd be interested in having your information and following up, or whatever it is that you're trying to do. The second thing about the scripts that's really important is you want to make sure the script is interactive, and I already mentioned this. The longer you talk to somebody without engaging them, the more likely they are to disengage. People get bored very, very quickly. And I'll give you one key thing that you never want to do on a cold call. You never want to list your products or services. You never want to do anything in the form of a list. We do this, and we do this, and we do that. That is the most boring, uninteresting stuff for a prospect that you can possibly imagine. So don't do a list. Try and give the person something of value instead. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so now let's talk about presenting, and this is one of my favorite subjects. You want to use EEP. What's EEP? EEP is energy, enthusiasm, and passion. There's a genius marketing fellow by the name of David Ogilvy. He owned one of the most successful advertising agencies of all time, based in England, and his name was David Ogilvy. And one of his famous quotes is, "You cannot bore people into buying your product. You can only interest them in it." And on the telephone, as we'll discuss in a second, it's very easy to be boring. So you gotta pay attention. So the first thing you want to do before you ever pick up a call or start a call is you want to have these three things present. You want to have energy. You want to sound alive, alert, excited about what it is you have to do or to talk to somebody. You want to have real energy. You want to have enthusiasm. You want to be excited about your offer. If you can't look at your offer and look at the benefits and the results that you provided for previous customers and clients and say, this is really worth somebody's time to investigate. If they will let me help them, provided that all the, everything's in alignment, I can do wonderful things for these particular folks. I'm currently working with a client that calls on CFOs, one of the more difficult people to talk to in an organization. And one of the things that we had to do is we had to get the primary salesperson who's making these calls to see and realize how much value he was actually potentially bringing to the table, and how much this person would thank him if they were able to achieve what they had achieved with previous clients. And that brought his enthusiasm for what he was doing way up. The final thing is passion, and it's sort of related to enthusiasm, but it's an inner conviction or belief in what you're doing. And it allows you to have the enthusiasm, and enthusiasm tends to build energy anyway. So it's a kind of a powerful combination. And I'll give you an example of how simple it is to do this, even with the most menial product. My first job in telesales was selling magazines to housewives. And I realized that I needed to be excited about that if I was going to get other people excited. Because if I call up and I didn't sound like I was very excited about the product, why are they going to get excited about it, right? And so I sat down and figured out all the great things that this particular subscription program offered in the way of flexibility on the magazines and cost and all those things. And I go, this is really something worthwhile. It's not for everybody. It's not going to solve everybody's problem. It's not going to be great for everybody. But for those it's good for, it's going to be really good, and they're really going to enjoy it, and they're going to, they're going to get a lot of benefit out of it. And that gave me the passion, energy, enthusiasm I needed to make really high-quality calls. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so now I want to tell you a little bit about the telephone communication. The telephone is absolutely a powerful transmitter of emotion. And if you've ever noticed when you talk to people on the phone, one of the first things and most vibrant things you get from people is an impression of who they are based on the audio that you get from them when you talk to them. It's really a powerful thing. You get an image or a picture. Men typically listening to women tend to equate a voice with beauty. There's just so much cultural data that we've collected about how people speak, depending on where they're from or what they do, that we recognize those things in the voice and we build those pictures. On the other hand, the telephone can be a marginal transmitter of data in two ways. First of all, sometimes it's just simply difficult to understand people, especially if they have any kind of an accent or anything. And also with regard to the surroundings being noisy, or the line being noisy, or maybe it's not very loud or whatever. All of these things can make it difficult for the prospect to understand or hear what you're saying. It's another reason you need the energy, enthusiasm, and passion to bring your vocal volume up a little bit to make sure the prospect doesn't miss what you're saying. Prospects are very, very polite. They're not going to interrupt you for the most part, and they won't tell you if they missed something unless they're really engaged in a conversation with you. And so what happens is you go through your whole presentation, they miss some key little piece, and they just happen to miss it for one reason or another, and you ask the closing question, and basically they disengage because they haven't got the value because they didn't hear the whole thing. So very important to understand that about the telephone. Next. Okay, so to give you an idea of the telephone communication, there are three parts to a normal communication. The first one is audio. It's what we hear, the sounds and the tones. And this represents about 38% of a normal communication. So if you're standing at a party with somebody and talking to them, about 38% of what you're getting from them is that audio, the tones and the sounds you're hearing. 55% of that communication is visual. Most of our communication, because the phone isn't our natural communication medium, it's face-to-face, is actually visual, okay? And that's why at a party or in a noisy room, frequently you will understand what somebody says even though you didn't quite hear it all. And it's because we actually, to a certain extent, read lips and read facial expressions, and we put all that stuff together and we can fill in some of the missing pieces that maybe didn't arrive on the audio side. And the final part of that communication is the verbal, or the content, the meaning of the words and the information. And that's only 7% of the communication. And for any of you who have made prospecting calls or dealt with clients for a while on the phone, you know this is absolutely true, because every time you call them, they've forgotten everything you told them in the last call. So, but it's the lesser part, and that's why they say it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it that makes communication work. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, so here it is. It's not so much what you say, but how you say it. With the visual removed from your communication, essentially the telephone is audio. All of the color and excitement and pizzazz of your product, the sizzle of the steak, is going to come out of what it is that you say and how you present it. In other words, your voice is going to be a big factor in what they think about what you're saying. And that's why I said that energy, enthusiasm, and passion are very important. And that's exactly the reason you have that negative reaction to telemarketers when they call up and start reading their script. It's exactly the reason that most of the time you can identify a salesperson, and so can your prospects, almost immediately, because there are so many cultural things that we've collected about how people start and engage sales calls, that the guy says 2 words and you already know it's a salesperson. And so your prospects are going to know that too. In order to break that barrier, you have to go on the communication side and get that person engaged in a real conversation with you. And that's part of using your voice in the ways I've been talking about. Now, it's not totally true that what you say isn't important. Obviously, it is important. But what engages the prospect first is your energy and enthusiasm and passion for whatever it is you're talking about. If you've ever had a problem with an organization and you needed to call customer support or whatever, you may have noted that on occasion you reach somebody who just has an unbelievable smile and friendliness and love about them, and all of the steam you had to yell at somebody about this problem just basically evaporates, and now you get in a friendly conversation with this person who sounds like they really want to help you. And this happens all the time. It's one of the reasons that the voice thing is not only important in sales, the first couple of words you say, but it's also important in support and customer service. The tone set by the person answering the phone is going to carry into whatever happens in the call after that. So when you call up, the first couple of words you say, that prospect's going to recognize you're a salesperson pretty immediately. But if you grab them emotionally and in that way, you can engage them in a conversation, and you have a chance of getting the beginning of your story told, getting enough rapport to go forward and actually give your message. All right, next. Okay, so now what I want to talk about now is I want to talk about some of the key things as far as what you should say and how you actually engage with the prospect. The first thing, most important, always use the person's name and use it frequently. If you ever meet somebody who's been in the insurance industry for many, many years, you'll find they use your name all the time. And the reason they do is it's very engaging. You like to hear your name, right? It's the most important word in the English language. So do use their name. If you can't pronounce their name, ask them, and ask them immediately. And this is actually a huge advantage to you. So even if you're going to use their first name, which you can pronounce, if you can't pronounce their last name, you may want to use this tactic anyway. What you do is you say, I'm sorry, John, how do you pronounce your last name? I don't even want to attempt it because I don't think I could pronounce it correctly. Or if you don't know their first name, you say, I'm sorry, I simply don't know how to pronounce your name. Could you tell me? And what you end up in is you end up in a discussion about their name and how to pronounce it. You ask them how to do it. You try it. You ask them, did I pronounce it correctly? And they say, yeah, that's right. And you say, great. And now you can go into your conversation with them. What this does, remember I said earlier, it's very important that your presentation be interactive. The reason that's true is the more communication you have with the person, the more their affinity or friendliness to you is going to go up. Okay? The longer you talk to them, the more they're going to feel comfortable talking to you, even though you're a salesperson. Doesn't matter. It's just simply a function of communication. The more we talk to somebody, the more affinity we get for them, and the more understanding we have of them. Okay, so that said, this is a good way to get somebody engaged. There's another little thing, and you have to do this very carefully and understand how to do it right, but there's another little thing you can do also to get that little bit of an engagement with them, and that is you could just simply tell them, hey, for some reason you're a little bit hard to hear on my end. Could you just speak up just a tiny bit so I can hear you better? And again, that gives you a chance to engage the prospect in conversation. Doesn't matter whether it's true or not. He doesn't know, right? He's not going to know. But it gives you a chance to break the sales mentality of the conversation and talk about something else. And it also gives you a chance to, thank him and give him a compliment. Hey, that's great. That's much better. And so you just develop that little bit of rapport that's helpful. Okay, so here's the most important thing in doing prospecting calls. You need to speak directly to what's in present time. In other words, you need to speak directly to what the prospect says. If the prospect says, I get thousands of calls like this every week, you need to address that issue and answer that question. You need to say, I understand that. I know an awful lot of companies out there that are making calls, and what I was hoping is that I could show you how we might be able to, we're different, or we can do some things that other people don't do, or whatever your selling proposition is. The other thing is you want to address the prospect's emotions or feelings. If the prospect answers the phone and he's laughing, engage in that laughter by saying, it sounds like you're having a great day. What's going on? Get him to talk about the laughter. Again, what you're doing is you're building rapport, and you're diluting the sales atmosphere of the conversation. If they answer the phone like they're really busy or stressed, bring it up and say, hey, it sounds like I may have reached you at a bad time. Do you have a minute? And that's the only time you really want to ask them about their time. because what you have to say is important, and you shouldn't be begging for their time. But if they answer the phone and they're really having a bad day, you should address it and say, hey, it sounds like you're having kind of a bad day. Is everything all right? And get them to talk about it. Okay? So that, again, it builds more rapport and it diffuses the sales atmosphere. Don't fail to answer the prospect's question. This is one of the most common mistakes salespeople make. It's especially hard on prospecting calls because it's what we call a communication break. Whenever you don't address directly the subject of the last sentence your prospect said, you're creating a break in the communication. The normal communication is, I say something, you acknowledge it or respond to it in some way. Maybe you say a new idea and then I respond to you and your idea. When you break that sequence, it's like static on a radio station that causes you to want to go to another station. And if you do that enough, you will find your prospect disengages. And if you actually record your prospecting calls, you will find that more often than not, the prospect disengages at exactly the point when you break the communication. It's just amazing how it works. Okay. The other thing you need to do is not change the subject without permission. Okay? If you're going to go from one subject to another, you need to lead the prospect into it and get his agreement to do that. For example, he may ask you, well, I'd like to know more about your pricing. And you don't say, we have great pricing, I'll take great care of you, and change the subject. What you say is, I'd be happy to talk about pricing, but before we do that, if I can get some information from you, I'm going to be able to give you a much better answer to that question. Would that be okay? Right? So you transition into that. And the other thing you need in a prospecting call is you need to have a very powerful and compelling reason for your call. It's your unique selling proposition. If you can't give the person a very compelling and powerful reason to talk to you, you're going to have a hard time with prospecting. A lot of times you're going to have to leave messages because you won't be able to get the decision maker on the phone. And when you do, again, it's that unique selling proposition that is going to give the decision maker the information he needs to say, hey, I need to talk to this fella and find out what he's about. Oftentimes, if that proposition is powerful enough, even though that subject isn't on the prospect's plate, he may come back to you and say, this is something I'm interested in, but not right now. Could we schedule to talk at the beginning of the quarter, right? That's the kind of thing that will happen. All right, next slide. Okay, so finally, as far as my presentation goes, here's how LinkedIn can help you. LinkedIn makes it possible for you to get your name in front of the prospect in various ways, and even engage them in various ways before you make that cold call. All of that develop rapport and helps you. Obviously, connecting with them on LinkedIn is great because you can get some contact information out of that connection. The other thing is, it's sort of a relationship opportunity in that when you connect with them, if you send them a really fantastic thank you for connecting letter, you can make a great first impression on them. Now that letter has to be about giving them value or entertaining them or whatever. It can't be about selling them something. And if you want an example, just go to LinkedIn and invite me to connect with you, and you will see when I thank you for that connection what I do to make that great first impression. The other thing you can do, and I'm not a big fan of the endorsement function on LinkedIn. I think it's pretty much worthless. They're traded like Pokemon cards, and they really don't have any meaning. A lot of people go around asking me for their for an endorsement. I don't even know who they are. How the heck am I supposed to endorse them? But it is a way to put your name in front of the prospect and show him some appreciation on LinkedIn. So if you have a prospect on LinkedIn and you can go endorse them for some of their skills, and I'd be very selective on what you endorse them for, go to their profile and figure out what their major talent is based on not only their current job, but their last couple of jobs, and endorse them for one or two of those primary skills that are obviously their strengths. And what that does is it just pops your name in front of them. It's not really a communication of any kind, but if you were to do that the day before you made the cold call, there's a chance they're going to remember your name. And that gives you, again, that little bit of familiarity or a little bit of help in the engagement. The final thing is there are many ways to engage people in discussions through groups. Unfortunately, a lot of decision makers stay away from making posts in the groups because they're afraid they'll get bombarded by the consultants and salespeople who hang out in them looking for something to eat, right? So sometimes it's hard. But if you can find your decision maker engaged in a group discussion, either a posting or an answer, it gives you a chance to interface with them directly regarding their post or regarding their answer. You can compliment them. You can add a point to what they said and say, you know, I think what John said was really critical, and I'd add this, you know. So you can sort of bring up their name, and again, it's an indirect method of conversation. There are a lot of other powerful things you can do with groups too, but we don't have time to go through that here. But the best thing you can do is use LinkedIn to make a great first impression so that they're more open to talking with you when you are ready to make that call. And what I'd like to offer you is just a couple of ways to help you do that better. Next slide. Okay, so the first is a video recording of a live webinar I did for Bob Bly. I don't know if you know who Bob Bly is. He's a very famous copywriter. He's written dozens and dozens of books, including 2 excellent books on copywriting every salesperson should read, The Elements of Copywriting and Copywriting, I think it's called the Copywriting Handbook. The Elements of Copywriting is fabulous. It will help you write better emails. It will help you improve your languaging in your script. It will do all kinds of great things to help you engage your prospects. So I highly recommend you read it. We bumped into each other by some accident of circumstance. I actually shared, and this is a good way to get somebody's attention, I actually shared some suggestions for Bob's profile with him. He thought they were so good, he asked me if he could publish them in his newsletter. So once he did that, I responded back and I said, hey, Bob, if you really think this stuff is valuable to your readers, let me do a free webinar for your folks. And that's what we did. And this is a 70-minute video all about how to use LinkedIn and leverage LinkedIn. So a lot of the stuff I talked about in the last slide about using LinkedIn, you will find in this video. It will be very, very helpful. If you're really serious about LinkedIn, check out my new LinkedIn tips letter. I've just come to the end of the first month. Every single subscriber to that letter resubscribed. In other words, they continued their subscription. It's only $5 a month. And every couple of days, you'll get a tip from me on something you can do on LinkedIn that will help you get more prospects or get more results on LinkedIn. Typically, they are a page or 2 pages of information. It's not just a little flirting thing that says do this and no explanation. I actually go into quite a bit of detail. If you don't like the newsletter, quit before the end of the first month. Tell me it wasn't worth the $5 and I'll send it back to you. So that's my, my offer to you. I hope you will join me in the tips letter, and by all means watch the video. You will find it very impressive. My basic business is helping inside sales organizations become more effective. My focus now is on teaching managers how to develop and run their own internal training. It's the only way that you'll get a group that runs at really, really high performance. And of course, I can do training and help with all kinds of things. I've set up over 60 groups from scratch. You know, there's just about nothing I can't help with the inside group. But that's what I do. I thank you for coming. I'm going to turn it back over to Clinton.
All right. Thank you so much, Flynn. That was some great insights that you were able to share with us. Many of those are exciting stuff that I would also try to incorporate on my calls as well, although I don't load mostly cold calls, but that's going to help me as well. Okay, so here's an offer for everyone who have joined the session today. We're going to offer you a fully functional 7-day trial of the account researcher tool that Clinton mentioned to you as a token of our thanks. We'd love to hear your feedback on how the trial went and what you like about the tool, so please do respond back to me and send a quick email to me at rich@egrabber.com. I very much welcome that and appreciate it. You can also call me at the number that you see on the screen, and if you have anything that you need my help with, I'll be happy to help you as well. Okay, we're going to take in some questions now, so if you do have some questions for Clinton or for Flynn, please go ahead and start using your questions box. I'll be quickly going through those questions. We still have about 7 more minutes, so that's a good time to ask questions. I'd appreciate if you don't raise your hands. Please use your questions box. This is not going to be a roundtable discussion, so if you could please type in your questions box, I would be happy to answer, get your questions answered by Clinton or by Flynn. Okay, let me quickly go and take a look at some of the questions that have already come up. All right, how long does this typically take to return specific info on a person after you click the button? Clinton, I think that's for you.
Yes, so the eGrabber software, as soon as you take a name in a company from wherever it is, whether it's a LinkedIn profile or you type it in manually, once you click that button, it takes under a minute, okay, in the worst circumstances, to find that contact information for you. Sometimes it might just take a few seconds, and this is much better than if you're doing it manually, because we have surveyed a lot of people, we have spoken to a lot of salespeople, watched them do their work directly. They take anything between 5 minutes to about 15 minutes to find what they need to find, and a lot of them either don't know the best sources on the internet to go find this information from, or some of them get stuck in what somebody called a rabbit hole. You know, you go to search for one piece of information, then you land up in something, then go to something else, and you go to something else, and before you realize it, 15 minutes is out. So this software kind of keeps the focus, okay? And besides, when it's doing its job, in that 1 minute you could be doing something else. You could be looking at another prospect, you can be catching yourself a cup of coffee, anything that you like to do in that time. So less than a minute, it can do a lot of things for you. And this software kind of works one at a time, but if you need batch mode processing, then you can always leave a note with Rich and he can get you a demo of that. Okay? Yeah, Flynn.
I was just going to say, speaking as a user, I found that typically it takes less than 35 seconds to get all the information for you.
Yeah.
So
that's a user. Thank you, Flynn.
And it's very consistent. It's been very consistent for me, 35, 40 seconds, and it's got everything, and frequently it's faster than that.
Oh,
thank you.
Great, fantastic. Clinton, here's another question for you, okay? What is the percentage of accuracy of the emails being grabbed? You know, how often does it get you someone's current email versus an old, outdated email that may have been floating out there?
Well, let's say that has to do with the recency or how current the contact that you put in, because the tool needs you to point it to a name in a company. So if you're giving a name in a company of a name of a person in the company where the person worked out previously, then well, you will get an outdated email. But if you're starting from a LinkedIn profile, okay, my thing is that that's a pretty good place to start, because people update their LinkedIn profiles when they move from job to job, because that's their online presence. They use it for prospecting, they use it for so many things in life. They use it to get their next job. So people update their LinkedIn profiles. So if you're starting from LinkedIn profiles, okay, and you're taking the name and company from there, then you have a pretty good chance of getting the latest contact information about the person. But if you put in a name in a company, no matter the software doesn't check whether that person is working at that company or not. It assumes that you know that information, and it'll go ahead and it'll try and find that person's email address and the phone number. And if it can't find the email address, it tries to project it based on what the colleagues in the company are using right now.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, that is a great thing. Flynn, here's a question for you. Okay, it says, have you trained the people to actually sound enthusiastic on calls? Can you give a quick example of that?
Yeah, actually, the nature of most of my training is what we call tactical training, and it revolves around listening to live calls and analyzing exactly what happened and why it happened and what maybe the better practice would be or what the options might be. There's really no right or wrong. I mean, a lot of times you hear a horrible call and the result is great, right? So you can't really say it's right or wrong, but the examination of that, in that process, people get to hear how they sound, and as people hear how they sound and hear that they basically sound bored, it has a lot of effect on changing the presentation. If people are really well motivated and they know what to say, you will find that their presentation voice is much better than when they don't have those tools to work with. So that's what I would say. Yeah, if you have a group and they need help with the presentation part, that's easily something I could help with, and you guys are free to contact me, and I'm happy to talk to you and help you investigate and see what you might be able to do about it.
Okay, great. Clinton, here's another question for you. Can you use this tool for searching SIC codes instead of just names?
If you're looking for SIC codes, I believe you're looking for companies. So what you can do is you can, this tool does not search by SIC codes, but there are some free sources out there that you can use. ZoomInfo is a very good source. You can go out there. They have a company search. You can type in the SIC code over there, and it'll get you a list of companies which match that SIC code. Very up-to-date database, very good. Okay. Once you get the company and you need the decision maker, you can come back to the software, the eRubber software. Just put in the company name, type in the decision maker that you need, and press the button, and you'll get all that information. Okay. And if you need some help on cold calling the decision maker, well, you have Flyn's contact information, which I'm going to show that to you, and you know who to contact if you need some help on that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Flynn's going to get some nice calls today. Be prepared for that, Flynn.
I'll be here.
Okay, great. Okay, Clinton, here's another question for you. Are you able to import a list, CSV or Excel, and have the list populated that way?
Yes, you can. Not in this tool which I showed you, the account researcher tool, but yes, there is batch function tools available with us. Just leave a note with Rich, and he can arrange a demo for you.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to do that. So if you need some help, on getting a look at the other tool that Clinton mentions about, please send an email to me at rich@egrabber.com, and I would be happy to show you or arrange a demo for you on that tool. Okay, Flynn, here's a question for you. Okay, do you have any examples of a client you helped to fix their cold calling strategy? What problems did they face, and what did you do for them?
That's all I do. Well, the first thing I guess I would tell you about that is I have a magic touch with these groups. I have had incredible results with inside teams and inside folks, and I'll give you two very brief and quick examples. The first one was a number of years ago when I went to a small software startup company that had 6 inside salespeople, and basically I I basically helped them do a lot of the things that I've given you in this presentation. I actually helped them build a new sales message, a good script that they could use. And the results of that is the sales run rate doubled in the first month I was there and went to almost 300% by month 3. Recently, I've been working with a smaller company that does some stuff in the financial area and calls on CFOs. My work with them and helping them to recreate their messaging and how they make the calls and the things they say and do has basically resulted in a 5x success rate in getting appointments with CFOs for their next step. And what we've discovered is, since we've tuned this presentation over the last 4 or 5 weeks, is that now 50% of the people who listen to the whole presentation, which is quite short, sign up for the next meeting. So we've had a tremendous amount of success doing that. And like I said, that's my forte. That's what I do, is make inside sales organizations pop.
Okay, great. Flynn, here's another question for you. You mentioned about groups that you could, join on LinkedIn and about the users quite briefly. Okay, how do you choose the groups that you join, and how much time do you spend on them per day?
Okay, well, first of all, you should be in 50 groups. So obviously you're not going to be spending a lot of time in all the groups. Or you have a lot more free time than I do. The idea behind being in the 50 groups is, first of all, everybody that's in the group is in your network. So it gives you more access to more people and more visibility to others. That helps you in the marketing and selling of your product, solutions, or whatever it is you have. So you want to do that. The way you pick the groups, the basics are, first of all, you want to be an open networker. In other words, you want to tell people, I won't IDK you if you invite me to connect. I might ignore you, but I won't IDK you. I won't punish you for asking me to connect. And I'm interested in connecting with almost everybody. That's the first thing you need to do, is tell people that. And in doing that, you should join the 6 or 8 largest open networking groups you can find. And that allows you to post an open invite to people to connect, and that'll help you build your network on autopilot while you build it strategically yourself. The other thing about the groups is, groups allow you to engage people in conversations that you couldn't normally contact. For example, if you have a decision maker who you're not connected to directly, you can't send them anything but an InMail. And my experience with InMail has been, it's very marginally successful that you send somebody an InMail and they respond and you get a positive response out of it. So I'm not a real big fan of it. I don't use it. I don't even have a paid account. I can do almost anything you'd possibly imagine with a free account that people do with the paid accounts. And with Rich's great e-grabber tool, I can get all the info I want. So it works out just fine. But one of the ways to engage somebody in a conversation or be able to send somebody a note is to be in a group with them. Because if you find a decision maker that you're not connected to directly, in other words, first level, you can go look at their profile, look at what groups they're in, and if you can find a mutual group, you have a way to go join that, to go in that group, look that person up, and send them a message via the group. Now you got to be careful about how you do it. You don't want the group manager getting complaints that you're prospecting everybody in the group. So you have to do it in a careful way. And these are some of the things I teach in my LinkedIn stuff. But it's a way that you can engage them even though they're not connected many times. The other thing is, if you find a prospect that you have no access to at all, you can simply look through their groups and find one they're in and join it. And give yourself access to that person. And while you're in the group, do a quick survey and see if there's anybody else that might be worth engaging while you're there, and then just switch back out to another group. Obviously, you can't be active in 50 groups, so you always have some float on the groups. The best way to choose your groups is go to the groups page and do a search without putting any data in. This will give you a list of groups by size. The largest group is a jobs group. I suggest you join it because it will give you access to thousands and thousands of people by being in that group, and then just choose all of your groups by size first. So you get the largest groups. And then once you're in the groups, watch their activity levels. How many people participate in the discussions? How active is the membership? If it's not active, if you post stuff and nobody responds, then maybe you want to find a group that's more active and more participative that will get you better engagements. I guess that's a mouthful, but I think that's enough to cover the answer.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Okay. Yeah. Again, we've gone about 7 minutes overboard, and there's still a lot of people, patiently listening to us. I'd like to thank you all for staying so patient and listening to us. It's been a great session. I'm afraid that's all we have time for you today. If you have more questions for Flyn, there's Flyn's contact info on screen for you, and I'm sure he'll be happy to hear from you. So please go ahead and reach out to him if you need some questions from Flyn answered. And if you need some answers from me, if you need my contact info, there's it coming up right on your screen. And please do reach out to me as well. Thank you, Flyn. Thank you, Clinton. I appreciate both of you taking the time and giving us this great presentation.
Thanks, Rich. And I will, if anybody sends me a question from the webinar, I will answer it.
All right, great. That's great. That's nice to hear. All right, thanks again, Flyn. Thanks, Clinton. Have a good day, everyone.
All right, bye-bye.